Hey guys, it's Jen, and I'm excited to be bringing you my new Saturday series called Stamping and Scrapbooking. I asked for a vote last week of what you'd rather see first, Stamping and Scrapbooking or Inspiration is Everywhere. And it was a pretty close vote, but Stamping and Scrapbooking definitely won. So my next series will be Inspiration is Everywhere. Each Saturday series is 10 weeks long, 10 videos. And so each week I'll be bringing you a new way to stamp on your scrapbook layouts. I have tons of stamps. I know many of you do too. That was what was expressed in the comments for when I asked for your opinions, and you all have stamps that you're looking to get used up, and it's just sometimes stamps seem like a card maker's tool, but I love stamping in my scrapbooking, and so I want to show you some different ways that you can do that. Today we're going to start with a way that we're just going to like dive right in, and we're going to make a background with stamping. So I'll show you a couple of different ways to use stamps other than the technique that we're going to focus on, but today we're going to focus on making a background. So I am going to be using this stamp. It is a leaf. It's hard to see because I've stained it. It's a leaf pattern. This is from a Close to My Heart Workshop on the Go stamp set. It's from the Brush Workshop. I don't think it's available anymore, but you could use any large. I'm using a larger piece. This is just over 2 by 2, and I think when you're creating a background, it's important to use something that's not too small, otherwise it's going to get really tedious. And so you could use any sort of floral or leaf image. I'll link to some options in the video description below, as well as over on my blog, if you'd like to just see some different options of what might work for this particular technique. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use 3 different colors. I'm going to use this Hero Art Shadow ink in Fresh Peach, and then I'm using this ink from Close to My Heart. It's called Gold Rush, and I think this might be retired now. I'm not sure. I know for sure this one is retired. It's called Kiwi, but you could obviously use any colors of inks that you have. These are all water-based inks. They are, why the word is escaping me, dye-based inks. And so they dye the paper. They soak into the paper and they actually dye the paper. Pigment inks are a little bit more paint-like, and they rest on top of the paper. We'll get into pigment inks in a different lesson, but today we're going to use these dye inks. And these are the most common types of inks, so I'm sure that if you have stamps, you probably have dye inks at home. I think one of the awesome ways to make stamping look like, sometimes you want a stamp that looks like a stamp on your layout. I love using black ink for that, but when you want it to blend seamlessly within your layout, it's a good idea to use color. And so what we're going to do is we're going to stamp the 3 different colors on paper, and I did a little test just to show you what it's going to what it can look like. So I'm going to show you how to do this. They're just nestled in together, and I'm using 3 different colors, and I'm going to go from one color to the next all the way down the layout, or all the way down the paper. This is what it would look like on white cardstock, but I think it makes it look even more like a patterned paper that you bought if you do this on top of a patterned paper. So I think a good option is to do it on a subtle print. A text background works great for this, something really light colored. I am going to use this checkerboard print, and this is just an example of what it's going to look like. And so let me go ahead and get started and show you what I mean. I'm going to go ahead and put it on fast forward so that you can watch me create this, and I'll talk you through it. So I'm going to start by just trimming down that paper, and I'm going to stamp all of those leaves on the background. And I'm going to go ahead and start with that Fresh Peach color from Hero Arts, and I'm just going to work the stamp in so that it fits. All of those little pieces kind of nestle in together. And I think it's great to start by stamping off of the page. And then I'm going to do about a third. I go a little bit more than a third with this color. And then I'm going to move on to the Gold Rush color, which is from Close to My Heart. It's kind of a yellowy orange. And just fitting that in as well. And then lastly, I will move on to that Kiwi color, which is kind of a really green yellow. And I really like the way that color looks with these other two colors. And of course you could use any colors that you like. You could do one single color if you wanted as well. And so I'm just going to finish those up, and then we'll go ahead and slow down so we can color these in. Okay, now we've got them all stamped, and now I'm going to color them in. And I wanted to slow down for this part because I wanted to show you how you can create a color to match your inks, or yeah, to match your inks that you stamped with by simply smushing your ink pad onto a craft mat, or you could use some packaging or any surface that you can clean off that it won't stick to. And all you do is just rub the ink pad on the craft mat a little bit. So I'm going to rub all three colors on here. And then what I'm going to do is spray it with some water. And that's just going to create kind of a watercolor. I want a light color because I do want it to look watercolory, and I want this stamping on the outside to be darker. You can see here that it is. And so I just want a really light color to fill these leaves in with. And so I've just spritzed a bunch of water, and I can test it to see how dark it is. Now I've made what looks kind of like a watercolor, but it's definitely not a watercolor. It doesn't move around the same way that watercolors do. Just grabbing a paintbrush here. It doesn't move around the same way watercolors do, so you won't get the same movement, and it's more permanent. So let me just show you a few really quick, and then I'll put you back on fast forward. So let's just do some of these orange ones. Let's see how dark it's going to be. Oh, that's pretty perfect. So you can see that it doesn't quite move around the same way watercolor does. The more water you add, the better that gets. And when you add water to these, because they're a dye-based ink, they are not waterproof, and so the color will move a little bit. It will blur those lines just a little bit, but that doesn't bother me in this instance. If I wanted them to not be blurry, I would use a different kind of ink. I would use a pigment ink or something like StazOn or something that is waterproof. So I'm just filling these in really kind of haphazardly. I don't want it to look perfect. I want it to look very watercolored and imperfect. So I'll just go ahead and fill these in. I'm going to put you back on fast forward. So I'm just going ahead and filling in the rest of that Gold Rush color, and then I'll go ahead and move on to Kiwi. Like I mentioned before, I'm keeping this pretty watered down because I want the outline of the stamp to be the darkest part. And I'll just add more water if I need to. And then lastly, I'll move on to that Fresh Peach color. And as I mentioned, I am just going over it really quickly. I don't want it to be perfect. I want there to be light and dark areas, and so I'm not trying too hard to make it look a certain way. I did need a little bit more ink, so I added a little. And I'll just clean off my craft mat and get working on the layout. So I am going to frame this photo. This is a frame from Heidi Swap, and it just comes plain like this, and it comes in a package with some rub-ons and stuff. I'll link to it below as well as over on my blog, but I wonder if you're meant to put the rub-ons on the frame, but I'm going to go ahead and stamp on it. It does have a bit of a slick surface, and so I'm using black StazOn ink because it is a solvent ink and it will stick to shiny surfaces. And I am using a stamp that when Two Peas in a Bucket was still around, Chamel had an exclusive stamp set with them, and this one is called Nailed It, and it's kind of a snarky little stamp set, and the stamp I'm using says, "Yeah, thanks for that." The photo is a picture of my daughter and my two nieces, and they kept us up all night and then slept in, so I'm just kind of being a little bit cheeky with that statement. Sorry, you could see my head a little bit there, but I'm just stamping it over and over on the diagonal. So I'm just going ahead and creating a pattern with this stamp. And I think that's an awesome way to look at your stamps. Rather than looking at it as a leaf or phrase, think about how you can make it into a pattern. I thought that this frame would be really cute with a text print on it, so I created one. So I'm just going ahead and filling in a few of the spaces that didn't stamp perfectly well with a pen here. And it's okay that it didn't stamp perfectly. Again, it's more about the pattern than the actual phrase. So now that I've finished stamping that, I'm going to clean up a little bit and then go ahead and get working on designing my layout. So we're going to stop with stamping for now, and we will do a little bit more stamping later in the layout, but for the most part, these are the stamped elements I'm going to use. So I have that tag, and it is from an older Fancy Pants collection, and then I'm using, well, I thought I was going to use this word that says together, and that is from the Maggie Holmes chipboard sheet. And I know that I want my title to be something like they have way too much fun together. And so I'm looking through some of my other letter stickers to see what might work with that word together. In the end, you'll see that I end up changing my mind about that word anyway. Right now I have the emphasis on the word together, and I'm going to pull out some thickers and spell out the word fun. Here they are. And so now the emphasis on my title is fun together, but I really want the emphasis to be too much fun. So my title is they have way too much fun together, and I felt like too much fun really fit the photo because they look like they're exhausted and sleeping because they had too much fun. And so that is the phrase that I want to stand out in my title rather than fun together, because in the photo, it doesn't look like they're having fun together. It looks like they're just sleeping. So it just made more sense with my layout to do it that way. And I am going to spell out the rest of the title with these Fancy Pants letter stickers. They're a little bit older as well. They're from, I believe, a Valentine's line. And that yellow color matched the Kiwi that I stamped with earlier really well. So now I'm pulling out a few other elements that I think might work on the layout. And this is the new Maggie Holmes Shine chipboard sheet that you see me kind of playing with. And there is a little sticker that says together. And this is where I kind of decide to change up my title a little bit. I pull out the thickers that are also part of the new Maggie Holmes Shine collection. And I'm going to use those to spell out too much fun. And I really like the way this ends up looking. And those stickers are just a really cool font. I really like the way they look. They're kind of like a jewel almost or something. They've got the facets, and I already love it so much more. So I'm definitely going to go with this. And I also pulled out that 3 cheers comes from the Maggie Holmes confetti line, I believe. So now I'm going to play around with a few other options. I found this wood chipboard sticker from We Are Memory Keepers that says Night Owl, but it's got the wood color, and I thought it would look nicer with white, so I'm testing out how it would look if I painted white around the edges on this other chipboard sticker that says LOL. So I just have some white acrylic paint and a small paintbrush, and I'm just seeing what that might look like if I paint the wood white, and it looks really good. So I'm going to go ahead and do it on this word that says Night Owl, this phrase, I guess. And these are, again, chipboard stickers from We Are Memory Keepers. I'll link to them if they're still available. They're not super old, but they aren't super new either. So just painting that with some acrylic paint. I really want it to stand out like the rest of the white. I think that white just pops on the background, and it's going to lay over that white frame. So I felt like it really needed that pop of white around the edge rather than that natural wood color. Sorry if my voice sounds kind of low. I feel like it's a little bit scratchy or something. So it's just going to take me a minute to go around the edge. I'm using a really fine tip paintbrush so that I can make sure I don't get any of the white paint on top of the black. And I'm loving the way that's looking right now. It gives just kind of a little fun artsy look. And Night Owl, I thought, when else would I ever use that? And these girls were definitely night owls. I thought that I needed to bring a little black onto the left-hand side of the layout, and so I just cut a strip of We Are Memory Keepers black striped paper. This is from their chalkboard line, which is fairly old, but I just had it in my scraps. Both of these papers are from my scraps, so I didn't use any new papers. I just used some new accessories. So you can definitely stretch your supplies this way too. Make it look fresh and new by just using some of your stamps, and I love that. So I'm just going to adhere this tag behind the photo, and I thought it needed another tag. So I'm looking through, I just have a bag full of tags to see what else I might want to add. And I'll end up pulling out this fabric tag from, I believe it's Pink Fresh Studio. And I got it in a rack. Well, it was like we did the Felicity Jane Pretty Paper Exchange. And so I got that from Amanda Johnson. And it just matches really perfectly. You can barely see it in the end. You can't see that nice faded look very much, but it adds a nice look and a different texture to the layout, which I really love. So now I'm going to look through my supplies that I pulled out and see if there's anything else that I want to add to the layout. I know it needs something to the left of the photo, kind of where the tags and that frame meet. It's just kind of an awkward space, so I want to add some things in that area. I pulled out a little chipboard floral sticker that is from the new Maggie Holmes Shine chipboard sheet. And I also found this sticker that says morning, and it's from Creative Agenda from Echo Park. I think Caitlin Schaefer designed it. And I'm also going to look through my Shine die cuts, and they have these really cute die cut flower pieces that have they're really intricate, and I pulled out the yellow one because it kind of matches that yellowy color on the bottom. And then I also pulled out a leaf shape that's kind of, I don't know, it's a tan or khaki color, and it just looks really nice there. And then I have a little folder full of silhouette die cuts that I've just previously cut out. I binge cut sometimes, so I'll just cut a bunch of things out from watercolor paper or white cardstock. And these are some leaves that I designed that I put on the layout. They aren't the ones that are for sale in my little shop, but they're similar. So I'll go ahead and link to the ones in my shop. I made these before I started designing those. So I'm just making a little cluster on the bottom and overlapping those things and kind of making it look interesting in that corner. And I really like the way that floral cluster brings that corner together because it felt a little strange and awkward at first. So I'm just gluing those down with a little Scotch Quick Dry adhesive in a fine line bottle. And then I'm also going to make sure that I use that little black sticker that says 3 cheers. I felt like I needed some black on that side, and there's 3 girls and they were having fun, so cheers works as well. So now I'm just getting the chipboard stickers stuck down these stickers, and usually I add extra adhesive, but I don't know if it's because these are brand new. I didn't have to add any extra adhesive. They were really sticky. I'm also going to put down these Fancy Pants little tiny letter stickers, and I'm going to put them all down before I realize that they are getting a little bit lost on that stamped background paper. I'm kind of putting them across the join of that background paper and then the white cardstock, and they're getting lost. So I'm going to pull out some white acrylic paint here in just a second and just paint across that join so that I can get my letters to stand out a little bit better. So you can see I'm pulling them all up now. I'm just going to use a little bit of paint from the lid of my white paint here because I just really need a little bit to paint across there. And I'm also going to paint some below the photos just for some consistency. It's really subtle, but it does make a big difference when I put those letters on top of it. And while I'm waiting for it to dry, I'm going to go ahead and adhere the rest of these things. I'm going to write the word good on top of that morning little sticker that's in the yellowish color. And I practiced it first on another sticker to see if it would work. I'm using a white Jelly Roll pen, and so now it reads, Good Morning Night Owl. I went ahead and typed up my journaling on my typewriter just on some white cardstock, and I'm cutting it into strips. And I'm just talking about how they don't get to have sleepovers that often, so they took advantage of this one, stayed up all night, and even though I shushed them a million times, I was glad that they were able to have the opportunity because I'm starting to realize that I need to let my kid be a kid sometimes. So I'm just using my Scotch Quick Dry adhesive in the fine line bottle to glue down those words or those journaling strips. And I started with the spot where the L comes up a little bit on that night owl is where I nestled in that bottom strip. And I like to find little places like that to tuck things. And I get a lot of questions about that fine line bottle. It comes empty and then you fill it with whatever glue you like. And so I have one filled with Scotch Quick Dry adhesive, and then I have another one filled with Ranger Multi-Medium Matte. And you can put glossy accents in there, any kind of thing. I always link to it in the description below the video, as well as over on my blog at CraftyJenSchow.com. So be sure to look for that if you have any questions about it. So we're nearly to the end of the layout here. I'm just going to go ahead and get those letters stuck down again up at the top. And then I will add a little bit of spray mist and some date stamping. I did fail to mention that I ruffled up the edges of the papers on the left by just running my fingernail down the side of them. I do that quite often. So here's where I'm going to pull out my roller date stamp. This is a Project Life one, and I'm just going to stamp the date. And I think date stamps are a great way to add some texture to your layout as well as adding, that functionality of being the date. And so I stamped it several times on top and on bottom for a design element. And then I am sprinkling Mr. Huey's in Boss Lady, and I'm doing Heidi Swap Black color shine as well. And then I'm just using a little bit of that Gold Rush. I'm putting some water on that ink pad and splattering a little bit of that also. I forgot that I also added some Mr. Huey's in Manila, and I thought it would dry. It dries a little bit lighter, and it's kind of a darker version of that kiwi color, a little bit. Okay, so that is going to complete the layout. I hope that you have learned some ways to use your stamps, and look at them. I think it's helpful to look at them less as a stamp and more as a pattern. So for example, on this piece that I stamped, I thought that the frame would look cute if it had a text print on it. So I just grabbed a stamp and stamped it over and over. It's not perfect, but it still looks cool. And same with the leaf pattern. You don't have to use it as a leaf on a flower. Think of it as a pattern. How would this look cool as a pattern? So I often use my stamps that way. And then of course you can stamp the date repetitively to add to, I added it to this linear design by stamping it repeatedly on the top and bottom. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon. I've got some close-up photos coming up, and be sure to head over to my blog at CraftyJenSchow.com for much more information and links to all available products that I used. We'll see you soon.